All right, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 30th of October, 2024. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Wow, feels good to be coming off a win. I don't think we've done an episode reacting to a win yet this season. We only do Monday through Friday now. The Flyers' first win was in Vancouver. That was on a Friday night, and then they lost Saturday. So our next episode wasn't until Monday. The Flyers' second win was this past Saturday, but they lost Sunday, so we weren't coming off a win. But in this episode, the Flyers went into Boston, do something they haven't done in 13 years, and we are coming off a win. So there we go. Flyers, for the first time since October 6th, 2011, go into Boston and get a win in regulation. Now, that night on October 6, 2011, let me give you a little bit of perspective on just how long ago that was. Because that was the night that the Boston Bruins raised their Stanley Cup banner after they beat the Vancouver Canucks in 7 in 2011, in the summer of 2011. And the Flyers, in that game, it was also the NHL debut for the Flyers' now captain, Sean Couturier. Again, this is 13 years ago. This is bananas. Also on the roster in that game, and this comes to us, guy put this in my tweet response to it, Jay Lopez. Here's some of the players that were in the Flyers roster. Obviously, Giroux, Couturier, Danny Briere, Flyers general manager, Scott Hartnell, Jaromir Jagr was on the Flyers roster, Andreas Nodal, Matt Reed, Wayne Simmons, Max Talbot, of course, Jake Voracek, James Van Riemsdyk before he was traded for the first time, Matt Carl, Braden Coburn, Andre Mazzaros was on the blue line, Chris Pronger, Kimmo Timonen, and in goal that night, Ilya Bryzgalov. So Flyers won that game 2-1. They won the game last night 2-0 in Boston. That is a long time ago that the Flyers got a win in Boston. Last night, it wasn't perfect. They didn't generate a ton of offense. It turns out they didn't need it, but they got great goaltending, and the penalty kill. Oh, was the penalty kill incredible. In the first period, they did kill off a pretty long 5-on-3 that the Bruins had in a scoreless game. They do that. They kill off the remainder of it. They end up taking 5 minor penalties in the game. They go 5 for 5. And usually the PK is one of those things where you go, well, our goaltender's got to be our best penalty killer. Sam was good, but he didn't even see a ton of shots on the PK. The PK was so good at putting sticks in passing lanes, at not overcommitting but being aggressive when it called for it, at putting their body and their structure in the right spot to force shots either wide or blocked. Boston only had 23 shots in the game. Flyers did a great job structurally, and that started on the PK. One thing I was wondering, we were talking about this at intermission with Brian Smith, all year the PK structure has been really good, but the 5-on-5 structure has not. It was last night, but overall, it has not. And that kind of confused me. Why is the structure so diligent, detailed, and good when it's 5 of their players versus 4 of your own on the PK versus when it's 5 of their players versus 5 of your own? I don't understand it. It's one of the head scratchers as to why 5-on-5 has been such a gong show for most of the beginning of this season. But the structure in that game last night was very good. Now, I was talking to Chris Terry in pregame, on the pregame show on the radio, and we talked about it. The way the Flyers got to work their way out of this is by working from their crease out. The offense will come as a result of much better defending because you're going to defend less. And if you have better structural defending, you can then get out of the zone better as a 5-man unit as well and attack that way. Now, again, not a ton of offense last night. Flyers only had 19 shots on goal, but the defensive zone structure was so much better. And while the Flyers spent more time defending than Boston spent defending in this game, the Flyers did a much better job at defending the middle of the ice and not overcommitting, not being redundant in coverage. It looked light years better. And I got to tell you, the one gaffe aside between Emil Andre and Sam Ersson where it almost ended up in the back of the net, Andre's got to come behind the net and take the puck from the goaltender on the power play every time. Don't peel off and have the goalie just leave it behind the net. That's what Ersson was doing. Then when he saw Andre peel off, he tried to push it, almost ended up in the back of the net. Other than that, I thought Andre was really good in the game. I thought he was excellent. Matter of fact, I thought he made such an underrated play on the Tyson Foerster goal, which turns out to be the game winner. So the puck, first it's a quick up the ice to go into the zone. It's a one-touch pass at the Bruins blue line for the zone entry. Flyers end up going, and they lose control, and it gets rimmed around the boards, and it's coming up the left wall. And Andre reads it beautifully, goes down for the pinch, wins the race on the pinch down to the puck just below the top of the circle. And he's got a Bruin player coming that was following the rim to attack his hands and try and go through that puck and up the wall and go out of the zone with a pinching D, which can end up in an odd man rush the other way for the Bruins. But what Emil Andre did was he just had a little stick lift as the player is attacking him. And because the player was going in to attack the puck and go, he didn't put any body on Emil Andre, which I think is a mistake in the way you would play Andre to begin with. I think you play through his body because he's not a bigger guy. But because Andre does that, now he gets a flyby from the Boston player. And because Andre, something I've talked about a ton with him, is always, watch his head when he plays. It is constantly moving around. He's got the beady eyes. He does not stop moving. He is constantly surveying the ice. And because he's doing that, he knows that Tyson Foerster's in the middle of the ice in the high slot. I don't think there was a sight line where he could see him, certainly not that quickly. He knew that Tyson Foerster was there because before the actual play happened with the Boston player attacking him, he knew he was there because he's assessing the play. He's playing mentally from in front. So he sends it to Foerster, who was able to get the pass, gather, get on his forehand, and beat Jonas Korpisalo, who, by the way, I thought played well. He made two unbelievable saves in the first period. Second shift of the game, maybe. Bobby Brink almost beats him, low blocker on a play where he's got to move all the way across his net from his left to his right. He's able to make that save. And then as Scott Lawton came out of the penalty box, 2-on-1 with Garnet Hathaway, and he makes a great glove save. Granted, I think the Hathaway could have shot that puck closer to the far post, would have made it more difficult. He shot it a little into his head. This kind of Korpisalo kind of goes up like this to get it with the glove. Still a great save. But Andre, that's a great offensive play on a quick decision to pinch down the wall and create offense. And John Tortorella talks about pressing forward, surfing forward. That's exactly what he's talking about. Andre did it beautifully there. Now, that was in the second period where he assists on the goal, the game-winning goal of the game. Go back to the first period. Brad Marchand gets 3/4 of a step on him on a play, and Marchand's going toward the Flyer net. Andre keeps his legs moving and knows he's not going to regain inside position, but he plays Marchand through the hands and is able to use the legs get him to the position where he needs to be, and then the stick allows him to break up the play. And this is Brad Marchand. I think he's one of the best puck protectors in the league. Low center of gravity player, much like Emil, and he's and very strong on pucks and possessing the pucks in that situation and putting his body in a position to protect it. I thought Emil did a great job breaking up that play. That was a very good play by Emil. I thought he had an excellent game, and he has absolutely earned his way into the next one on Thursday night against the St. Louis Blues. Really, really impressive performance from Emil Andre. Again, I thought Ristolainen and Sanheim, very good in the game as well. And both of those guys played a ton of minutes in the game. So really good performance defensively for the Flyers across the board. I thought Eric Johnson made some good plays on the PK. Really good performance. Eventually, at 19:36 in the third period, a little concerned the Flyers were sitting back a little too much and trying to win a 1-0 game, as a buddy of mine texted me and said that. And I totally agreed with him. You have to push a little bit. A little bit in the second half of the period, they started pushing for offense. and not just defending and trying to clamp down on a 1-goal lead. And eventually at 19:36 of the third, they get the empty net goal. Joel Farabee picks up his second unassisted. Flyers win the game 2-0. Just prior to that, Noah Cates beats an icing race down the ice to mitigate the icing. Another really small but good play. The reason why the Flyers won the game, for me, for my dollar, is that they played much more detailed, much more as a unit, and it all started in their D zone. It's those little things you do in a hockey game that if you don't do it, it prevents you from winning. And the second period was much better for the Flyers. Going into that game last night, they were minus 13 in second period goal differential. They had given up 19 goals, and they had scored 6. I mean, minus 13 through 9 games is horrifically bad. They went into that second period scoreless last night, and they came out of that second period up 1-0. They didn't have that 2.5 to 6 minute or 5.5 minute period of the game where they just lose the game, where they get down by so many goals, it's too big of a hill to climb. They didn't do that in that game. Now, why didn't they do that? A, like we just talked about, because of the structure. It was better, it was detailed, it was diligent. And that's got to be a thing for the Flyers that is non-negotiable. Whether their forecheck is working great or not working at all, whether their transition game is flying or not working and getting clogged, whether they're getting shots through or getting shots blocked, whatever it is, the 5-on-5 D-zone structure has to be non-negotiable. At least the willingness to do the right things from a structural standpoint starting in your D-zone. And everything else will flow from there. If you don't have that part, you'll have nothing. So that's got to be the non-negotiable. Why else? The goaltending. I've talked about bad goaltending bleeding forward into the players. They start to play safe because they're afraid to make mistakes. They start to overthink things, and they end up making mistakes, and it ends up in the back of your net, and it becomes kind of a vicious cycle. Well, we saw on that 5-on-3 early in the first period where Sam Ersson had to make some really big saves. He made a point-blank save on David Pastrnak. There was a play later in the period where it was a little 2-on-1 down low. I think it was Pastrnak to Elias Lindholm. And Sam had to move from pretty far on his left all the way over to the right side of the net, and he made a nice pad save, and he looked so confident doing it. Like that's a really hard save that he made look pretty average or easy, dare I say. It's not easy, but you know what I mean, because he read the play so beautifully. He was just on it from as soon as the puck left the stick, he was just over gliding, everything closed up, and made a really good save, and he made it look very confidently. And Sam Ersson is one of those guys, and body language for a goaltender, I think, means a ton. And Sam is one of those guys that when he's feeling it, and just the way he moves around his crease after he gets a cover or a whistle, like he just has a swag to him when he's confident. And I think every player out there on his team can feel it. Because they go, okay, he's on it. He's got the swag. He's got the look. Chest is out. He looks big. And just the way he's moving is confident. Shoulders are back. They're not slouched over. And that, to me, that confidence in your goaltender bleeds forward. And like I said before, usually penalty killing, your best penalty killer is your goalie. But he didn't have to be in this game. And I think that was there's just confidence out there. Look, this is a very important week for this Flyers team because they're not a team that's built like the Edmonton Oilers that's going to be able to rattle off 12 or 13 games to get themselves back into a playoff position if they get off to a hideous start. And yet it's still kind of early. We're 10 games in now. You're really getting close to that line of demarcation of going, okay, it's not early anymore. It's just a really bad beginning of the year, and it's going to be really difficult to claw out of it, much like the Flyers did in many games, individual games this year. So they're not built that way. They don't have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, blah, blah, on down the line, right? So they're not a team that's going to be able to do that. So it can turn from not being early in the season really fast for a team like the Flyers. That's why this week was really important and difficult, facing Boston, St. Louis, and then Boston. Not to mention the fact that it's in Boston, which has been a house of horrors for the team since October 6th of 2011. So really important first game of this week. Now, the big key going forward is really simple. Don't give it back against the Blues at home on Halloween, on Thursday night. And then you just beat Boston in Boston. Now beat them again this week at home. It's hard to beat a team twice in 1 week, no doubt. But you've gotten that first one. It's a good start to the week. Don't let it slip away. Don't let a really good week slip away on Thursday with a lackluster 5-on-5 defensive zone structural performance and go right back. You go one step forward, now one step back. We're on this treadmill of going back and forth. This is a week now where they've got off to the good start with a good win in Boston, and they can build on it. That's what needs to happen. They need to bear down on Thursday and build on it. That's the key. And they're also in this situation now, too, where, hey, you can't complain about the schedule now. There's not another back-to-back until November 29th and 30th. So you got game, day off. I mean, you've got some rhythm to a schedule now. Couple days off game, and you're going to have a road trip next week, and Carolina and Tampa and Florida. That's going to be tough, which is why this week is really important. They need to really capitalize this week to get themselves back in the mix here in the Metropolitan Division, in the Eastern Conference. Now, part of the good news is that the record's been pretty crappy, but most of that damage is done against the Western Conference. Now you move forward against Eastern Conference opponents. Got to find some regulation wins and points. All right, one more thing in this episode. I got this DM from a guy, and I just wanted to comment on this. John Kreese, he said, does Michkov need a slightly longer stick? Seems like he mishandles pucks. He mishandles the puck on what seems like routine plays, especially for someone of his talent level. I have not had a chance to check his sticks up close and personally yet. I will do that when I can. But the stick does look very small. Very small. And I would think the opposite. A player with a stick that's too long tends to boot pucks more than a player with a stick that's too short. Now, if it's a little bit longer, it handles a torque a little bit better. Especially when pucks, on hard passes or, rims, whatever it might be, get into the stick. It does look a little short for me. He is magical with it. He tried again last night on what seemed at the time kind of an innocuous play behind the Boston net to scoop the puck up and go lacrosse goal again. By my count, that's at least 4 attempts at it this season. He's got a couple times he tried it and just couldn't scoop it, whatever. He's going to get one. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if they'll try and get a longer stick in his hand or not. I'll see. I'll dig in and see on that. Because a longer stick will give you a little bit, obviously, more defending, ability to get your stick into lanes. But if it comes at a cost of any offensive prowess for him, and clearly he's got tons of that with whatever his stick length is. I don't know. That's something that maybe we see does change just because maybe he's never tried it. I don't know. I don't know if he's ever been asked to try a stick of a different length. So those will be things. I mean, in the list of questions and conversations that you're going to have with him, with the language barrier still, that's probably not high on the list when you see how magical he is offensively and with the puck and with his stick handling and puck protection ability, shooting and all of that stuff, distribution. So it's probably not high on the list, but it might be something at some point that they could add or he could try in his game. We'll see. But I do, by my eye too, it does look like a very short stick. But his distribution and his eye for the offensive end of the game is so stunning to me that not something that would be front burner as an issue for me at this point for Matvei Michkov. Flyers win. That's the big front burner issue for me. They win in Boston 2-0. They'll be back at it Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll preview Flyers and Blues as they come to town Thursday for the Halloween Spooktacular. And we'll get into some other stuff. I have some fun stuff planned for this week. So everybody, join us coming up tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.